Welcome to Instant Deck Techs. The aim of this series is to give you a short, concise guide on how to build a certain deck. It won't cover every card, but we'll go through all the categories and go over the types of cards needed to make the deck work. Any card mentioned will be down in the description below. The commander of this deck is Tergrid, God of Fright. Tergrid is 3 black for a 4/5 legendary creature god with menace. It has, whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card onto the battlefield under your control from their graveyard. It can also be cast on the backside as Tergrid's Lantern, which is 3 and a black for a legendary artifact that has tap, target player loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card, and 3 black, untap Tergrid's Lantern. The aim of this deck is to strip our opponents of resources and then turn them against our opponents. We'll be using sacrifice and discard effects to do this. We'll be running some effects which are dedicated to just doing this, but when it comes to our other categories, we'll also be looking for these kind of effects. So we'll go through our regular categories first, before then going on to dedicated effects later. We'll mainly be using the front side of Tergrid in this deck, but what I would say is that late game, I think the backside is a very good win condition by itself, as we can just dump all our mana into it and use it over and over. For our card draw spells, we want to be looking at things that either draw us cards from players sacking creatures or discarding cards, or have draw a card tacked onto those kind of effects. We want to run at least 8 bits of card draw, with standout cards being things like Waste Not and Geth's Grimoire. The ramp in the deck will be split into 3 sections. The first of those is Mana Rocks. I'd recommend running at least 4 Mana Rocks in this deck, as we need to be able to play our spells nice and early. The next section is cards that get land out of the deck. This is the deck that really wants the ability to get swamps and utility lands out at a consistent rate. The reason for this is the third category of ramp, which is Swamp Matters cards. These are very good in the deck and will give us some very powerful late game plays. This part here can get a little pricey, so if it doesn't work for your budget then I'd recommend running some more Mana Rocks. Because of its price, it's also hard for me to recommend Cabal Coffers right now. If you have one, then put it in the deck. If you don't, then wait for the inevitable reprint and pick one up then. Next, we're moving on to our interaction. A lot of the sacrifice spells that we're getting into in a moment will take up some of these slots, but I would want to make sure I have the base of these spells before adding any more. Feed the Swarm is great in this deck as it gives us an answer to enchantments. After that, then I'd want to run at least 4 of the best board wipes that you have available to you. That covers the base of the deck. As long as you follow these sections, you will have something playable. With that said, let's move on to the Sac Effects that will make up the rest of the deck. First up here, we're going to run some effects that cause our opponents to sacrifice creatures. These will do double duty, as they will help keep our opponent's boards in check, and with our commander, they will also give us a board state. Obviously when you're running these type of sacrifice effects, Grave Pact, Dictate of Erebos, and Butcher of Malekith work really well. However, these are the types of cards that a lot of people don't like playing against, so whether you run them or not, I will leave up to you. Next up is effects that makes our opponents discard from their hands. This will dovetail nicely with the sac effects in being able to allow us to control our opponents. Black is absolutely brimming with these kind of effects. The repeatable ones like these will generally be better in the deck, but the one-time effects as well should not be ignored, as they will generally be more budget friendly, but also let you time your discards so that they can have the most effect. For example, like after an opponent has just tutored something up. Then there are the cards that just do it all. These selections of cards do everything the deck wants to do, so outside of budget and curve management, there shouldn't be a reason not to include them. One other card that's worth mentioning is Grave Betrayal. It does a damn good job at adding some redundancy to our commander. It not getting cards that are discarded is made up for by the fact that it gets any creature that dies and not just sacrificed, so it works with board wipes and our opponent's removal as well. As we're a monocolored deck, we have a good amount of room for some extra utility lands. You can run up to 8, and look for effects that synergize with the deck, or give us extra answers with things like Bog. Before we finish up, there is a build of this deck that focuses way more on the discard portion of the strategy. If this is something you fancy, then you'd want to run a selection of cards that force players to draw extra cards, so they always have something to discard. You can then follow this up with Megrim style effects that deal damage to our opponents when they discard a card. The next couple of deck techs on the channel will be focusing on the new commanders from Kaldheim, but after that we'll go back to viewers' requests. So if there's anything you want to see, please let us know down in the comments below, and subscribe so you see those videos when they come out. Thank you very much for watching.